Welcome to the Redemptorist Missio Studios here at the National Shrine of Our Lady of Czestochowa in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. My name is Evelyn Walsh, and I'm the director of the Rachel's Vineyard Ministries here at the shrine. Our program series is entitled Touched by Mercy, Moved by Love. Rachel's Vineyard was founded by Dr. Theresa Burke in 1986 with the mission to offer retreats for post-abortive women in a way that offers renewal, healing, hope, and redemption by hearts broken by abortion. Not too long afterwards, this healing ministry also included men who lost fatherhood, grandparents, siblings, and even those who have worked in the abortion industry who had a conversion of heart. So truly, anyone who has ever been touched by abortion. I would like to introduce Dr. Theresa Burke, our founder, and our friend Monica, who will be sharing her story with us today. Welcome.
Welcome. And thank you for having me.
Sure.
Monica, we're so grateful that you're joining us to share a very personal, for most people, very private experience of what you've gone through. And I'm not sure where you want to jump in, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh, well, I'm originally from Germany. I was the eldest of four. I have one brother and twin sisters. In the beginning, my mother had three little children, so I went off to grandma's house for a year or something. And I have no recollection of that really, but so should I go into things from there, right there?
Yeah, you sure can. Why don't you share a little bit about how the situation that came up that led you to make a decision for abortion?
Okay, well, I think it really began at an Al-Anon meeting, and there was a mother there who was sharing. She forced her daughter to have an abortion, and at that point I was married to an alcoholic myself, and I had three children. So I had to say how I thought, I shared how I'm a mother of an alcoholic. I have three children, and it's not the right decision. And I don't know if I said that it was murder or something, but it was shortly after that, actually, that things really changed. I mean, my marriage was very troubled. Living with alcoholism is definitely not a picnic in the park. It's very difficult, and we were he gave me $5 to go grocery shopping and stuff like that, and my last child, I wanted to actually I never really wanted to get married, but coming to the United States, they kind of said, well, you have to get married, or else you can't come here. So I wound up married with an alcoholic, but very difficult. There was no money, and we were literally starving, but yet I had to nurse my youngest son. So I can't say that the mother was trying to protect her daughter from all of that. But I was totally against abortion at that point. But then it so happened, I never wanted to leave my husband or anything. I wanted to stick it out and love him, and you become the codependent, and you try everything to try and stop them, and that's becomes your whole life focus pretty much. But we were standing at the store to check out, and I had 2 apple juices in my hand, and I don't know what happened. Somehow my back twitched a little bit, and I had this excruciating pain on my back, and out of the blue. And so he had a Camaro at that point, so going home was even more excruciating, because every bump would I guess,
hit it all, yeah.
What that is like. But to going home, I literally crawled into the house. It was just so much pain. And then he thought that sex would make it better or something.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And I just begged him to stop, and he just wouldn't stop. So that was one of my worst experiences of my entire life. And after that, I just was immediately done. I just didn't allow him to ever touch me again, and I just filed for divorce. And I might say also that I had gone back to the Catholic Church at some point. A neighbor, I always have Filipino women in my life, so they invited me to Mass, and the priest said, well, you got to make a decision to fix the marriage or get divorced, because he was prior married too. And and my parents did not have a good marriage. They were like fighting all the time, so I really did not want the same thing, but somehow it seemed like that's just what I did. It's a similar situation. And I'm losing my train of thought. So I just ripped up my marriage license. I said, that's it, I'm done, That felt like, it was like a celebration day, like December 1st, like 1988, I think it was. And first it was really good, but then it was like the whole responsibility came down on my shoulders, and then you lose the control, like with parenting, and so because they do different things on that side than you do on your end. And it's like every weekend, like it was at that time I was working like 2 or 3 jobs just to give money up for the divorce and to get out and to support my children. That was like priority of mine.
Sounds like a really difficult and challenging situation. Did you feel like you were in a survivor mode then?
Yeah, and I felt like, I just was like, I guess, giving myself up for my children, and
like sacrificing yourself and even time with them when you're working 3 jobs. That's really rough.
It is, and I felt there was a lot of anger. I already had like anger from my father, and then there was anger from my ex-husband, because I felt like, and he wasn't paying any child support, and I was trying to not ask for that much anyway, because I knew I was probably not going to get it,
So nobody was really supporting you?
No, and my mother-in-law back then, like I had to pay her to watch the children on top of it, and I was like the lucky one that had money or something, and but it was really difficult time. And then so a friend of mine, I was working at the hospital, and a friend of mine said, was kind of counseling me, like I was crying a lot at work. She said, well, why don't I take you out like to the club one time to like lighten things up? And it was there. So I met like a nice guy, and he was like so sympathetic, and
a nice guy will fix everything.
My shoulder to cry on, and everything. I loved his voice, and it was all these stories, like he was a undercover cop or something, and his voice was from Disney World or something like that. And it's just, for the moment it was like romantic and amazing, and I thought like, well, maybe that was the answer, and everything seemed to be good until one time I was working like a double shift, and so when that happens, you feel like you're not in total control of yourself, and so that's like when I got pregnant. And so at first I was like happy about it. It's like, well, this is gonna solve everything now. It's like a new love, a new relationship, and
he'll take care of me.
Yeah, and he was good to my other kids and stuff, but when I told him, it's like he was not at all happy. And so then it turned out that a friend of mine, she was like also pregnant from him, and
same guy.
And then everything that he had told was just like all a lie, and so I was even worse off than ever before. And then his mother said, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. Like there's things that we can do about that nowadays." And even though I was totally against abortion at that point, I just felt like, well, I'm already taking care of 3 children. I can't possibly, work 2 or 3 jobs and then be pregnant and take care of another one. So I felt like I just couldn't do that without a father. And
that's desperate circumstances for sure.
And so I sought like a private physician, and he said to me like, are you sure you want to do this? You know, and I said, well, I feel like I don't have any other choice. And there was 2 instances I had like this experience, like working at the hospital, and I'm usually running a bit late, so I'm always like running to the time clock. And but I ran past the chapel, and I heard this one sentence, like, "For that sins shall be forgiven." Usually I would never hear anything out of there. But so I feel like the Lord, you know, did not want me to have an abortion, but he also didn't want me to not believe in his mercy and to not forgive myself. And so it's like my child would be like about 35 years old now, I guess. And you know, you wonder, you constantly wonder, like, well, was it a boy or girl, or like, you know, that is now a brother and a sister, or, you know, a relative, or a grandchild, a cousin, and that is just all gone. But another thing that happened, like I went to the bathroom, and all of a sudden it looked like all blood in the toilet, and I was like shocked. But again, I felt like I didn't have any other choice. And then so I went to the private physician, and I just touched my abdomen, and I just like gave the baby back to God. It was like, you know, I wanted. And my daughter, actually, before that, she said, "Oh, but mommy, I'll give you all the money in my piggy bank."
Oh.
And but one of my sons said, like, I don't know really what caused him to say that, but he was angry. There was a lot of emotional stress going on, and he said, "Well, why did you have me? Like, I wish you wouldn't. I was never born." And so that, like,
What a heartache to hear.
it was very heartbreaking, and so I just wanted to make sure that child, I just give him it back to God. And so then after that, well, it was like excruciating pain. It's like to go through that. You know, they talk about like it's no big deal. It's one of the worst pains you could ever think of, and I was like nearly passing out. And then right after, at first I felt like a relief. It's like now I had another chance, you know, to work and be there for my kids and stuff. But then it wasn't long after that, probably like the first day, it's like I just started to hate myself, like I didn't deserve anything good, like I deserved everything I have coming to myself, and I could just like work myself to death or something now, you know. And
so you stopped caring about your life?
Well, I don't know. I guess I kind of sacrificed myself for my kids I had already. And for the longest time, I would justify it. You know, it's like I didn't know what else I would have done. And well, there's adoption and stuff, but I felt like then the kid's going to tell me, well, you gave me away, you didn't love me or something, which was not at all the case, but I just couldn't get myself to do that, you know, and especially what my son had said to me too. And so I had to live with that choice now. And but then the lady that was also pregnant, like we became friends, but she also had an abortion, you know, and she said, well, it's like the only way to get over a relationship is to just start another one. And so that's when, like after work, I would go out to the club, and it's kind of like, and that I guess goes kind of back to my childhood. You know, it's like I felt from one relationship to another, and like I guess looking for love or that special someone that, you know, you could just find that total happiness or something, like, yeah. But
that's a tall dream. In your situation, what happened after that?
What happened after that? I used to just go to the club and work really hard, and at some point they found another boyfriend that actually he was Catholic, and he was nice, and he was another savior, and he helped me the best that he could, and we moved in together, and he, built bunk beds for my kids and stuff like so. But then sometimes he would disappear for like a month, and just the stress of a single motherhood or family unit was getting to him, and but his father didn't like me. He like called me like names, like I was like a lower person or something. So I thought, well, I would not want to get into that family when he doesn't like me or something. But before that, I actually got pregnant again. Well, I was taking birth control at some point, and then the doctor said, because I had a fibroid or something, he wanted to take me off the birth control, and so I got pregnant again. And he said, well, I'll be there no matter what, like if you have it or not. But I felt like I just can't have another one without a father figure there. So at that point I started like drinking really heavily, because I just wanted to, I felt like suicidal at that point too, because I did not want to go through that again. And they had gone to Planned Parenthood at that point, and then I was greeted by like all these signs that said like murderer, murderer, and so that really, instilled the thought process of like I was like one of the worst people to roam the earth or something. But
it's so despairing to hear all the hopes shattered again and again, especially when you're looking for someone to be kind and caring and protective, even of the children and yourself. So what a painful road of betrayals.
Absolutely.
So then what happened was actually I miscarried like the day before that happened, before I was going to go there. And that abortion clinic was actually burnt down like shortly after that. And so again, like in the hospital, I was like hemorrhaging, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was just left laying there in the hospital, and my boyfriend was not there. So at that point I felt like, it's not there, so I can't really stay in that relationship either. And so I go on, and then at some point I met my husband that I have now, and I'm still with him now, and I had 2 more children. Luckily, I didn't decide to like tie my tubes or something, because that really crossed my mind, But
How many years have you been married now?
I've been married. It's going to be 29 years this year.
Oh wow!
And,
that's a nice stretch. Mm-hmm. After all the turmoil before that, God was good to give you. He's a good man.
He's not that it's without struggles, but. My faith, I've had many healing experiences, like God came in, and that's just the best part. I've always, it was a cradle, I grew up a cradle Catholic, and but like my mom would send us to church, and my mother, like I told her at 5 years old, I just wanted to go to Mass by myself, and many times like I went to Mass before school and all of that, and praying the rosary, and I was like one of the youngest people there. But
5 years old, going to Mass yourself. I'd say there's a big seed of faith in there.
And I don't know how. I mean, you could just walk down the road, kind of. But I would never let my kids walk there by
But that was in
themselves,
Germany a long time ago, right? So it was like your village church kind of thing.
It wasn't like a village, like a outer city. Kind of, but...
What events brought you to Rachel's Vineyard? How did you hear about it, and how did you make the decision to go? Okay, well, around the year 2000, I had a profound healing experience. I guess I started helping, let me think again, I went back to the church at that point, and I was like procrastinating a lot, and like I said, the Lord sent me like Filipino women, and they'll convert you quickly.
And one lady at the hospital, like she, I saw her one day, and she was like so happy. I've never in my whole life saw anybody so happy. And I said to her, well, what's the matter with you? Like, are you getting married or something? And she said, well, close. She's becoming a nun. And she gave me 2 books. Thank you, God. Getting my thought back on train. She gave me 2 books, like one on Sister Faustina and one on Mother Angelica. And I read them, and in the beginning I was like angry. I didn't quite understand it. I thought like, well, I mean, I believed in God, but I thought like, well, God, he's out to kill you, you know. He's like Sister Faustina. She suffered her whole life. She didn't really get to do anything. Like, you know, like Mother Theresa took care of people, but she was just sick. And then she died young. And you're not allowed to have any fun, you know, and was angry, you know, I admit. And but then it was like 10 years later and my husband at that point, he was like Jewish, and he did not like me to go to church and didn't want to have a crucifix and stuff, but slowly I was able to get things set up.
Have objects around the house and pictures and so on. Yeah.
And so he said, well, why can't I put the Star of David up then? It's like, well, go ahead, it's fine. Like,
Jesus was Jewish.
But yes, but anyway, so after about 10 years or so of struggling and, you know, so all kinds of things going on with the kids and things, I'm glad he hung in there. But all of a sudden, by chance, I turned on the television. I found Mother Angelica, and I said, wait, I know her. I know that lady. I read her book. And I had contemplated on going back to church, but I'm a big procrastinator. You know, it's like, well, I'll wait till next week or when this happens. But I was struggling, of course, with my big sin. You know, I thought like the shingles are gonna fall off, or they're not gonna accept me. They're gonna send me packing right away or something. But Mother Angelica happened to say the most amazing sentence that I needed to hear, and that is like, it's an act of God, nothing else. And she said, every sin is forgivable. And so,
how did that settle in your heart?
That I went, like the next weekend, I went to confession, and I went back to the church, and I was welcomed warmly, and it's not at all how I expected. And I was like back ever since. And then I went like all gung-ho, trying to do everything in the church. But like my childhood was kind of rough, and there was abuse there and all kinds of crazy things. But and my father at some point had like spat into, like, there were 3 girls, he spat in our faces, and he told us like, we're not worth shit. And so that, and I had forgotten about that kind of, but that was like revisited in my mind, and then in my heart I heard like God's voice saying like he promoted me to compost now.
Oh.
And so, and it was just a healing, like something, I call it like living water pouring down on me. And it was like crying and laughing and crying and laughing. And, you know, to some people, they don't understand compost. Like, is that your new name? What does that mean? But for me, it's like God knew, he knows your inmost heart, your inmost being. And I like to grow things. I like to garden things. And not always that successful, but
but you know, it's a beautiful answer to prayer, because you wanted your soul to grow into the fullness of what it is invited to, but because of shame, we often
stunt the growth. Yeah.
Push that down and don't think it's real. And there was so many experiences that would have made you feel, from your father's words on, very devalued and not worth, or not even worthy. That he would bless you. But of course, God straightened all that thinking out in this revelation. I think it's a great story.
Yeah, so the compost meant the world to me, and, you know, my inmost being, and so that meant a lot for me, and it was a profound healing experience. And So I've tried to be that compost, like for the church too, and fortify things. And
it needs fertilizer. Surely. So when you've had a number of kind of, I'll call them really beautiful breakthroughs with grace, the Lord, you're even hearing him speak to you from the very beginning in words of hope, words of don't give up because I see you. And he spoke to her at some pretty critical points that you would know that he's still there, even though it's incredibly painful. How did you get into Rachel's Vineyard after all these grace moments? What made you think you needed more?
Well, of course, I went to confession a million times, and you think you're forgiven, and then there's still the gnawing background, like, am I really forgiven? And so I knew about Rachel's Vineyard, but at some point I thought too, well, I already, like, he's talking to me, like, I might not need that. But then I listened to Patricia Sandowell's story.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yes.
And I just, after that, I felt like, well, I need to do that. She had 3 abortions, and so that gave me courage. And there's actually a lot of women in the church also had abortions, and you can't always tell. And some of them went to Rachel's Vineyard. But after listening to her testimony, I was convicted of going. And there's many things leading up to it. Like another woman in the Bible study, she knew, how do you know I have that problem? She says, well, I just know, And so then I signed up for Rachel's Vineyard. And so my husband said, well, you don't need that. You don't have to go there. It's like, yes, I do.
If somebody says you don't need it, it's all the more reason. Oh, beautiful. So what happened to you? Was there a moment when God just reached in and you really felt like you could breathe again, that the grace was totally flowing in a way that maybe you hadn't experienced before in this wound?
Okay, well, all the little exercises were very profound, I guess my biggest one was probably, well, I have to say, the sister that was there, Marcelina. She said at some point, go to 3 people and tell them that they're not worth anything. And so I did. I went to 3 women and I said, look them in the eye and tell them you're not worth anything. And so that became rather difficult. And she said, well, do it again. And I said, I can't do it again. And she goes well, why not? And she said, well, because it's not true, because I see goodness in their eyes. And then she said, well, and don't you think that there's goodness in your eyes too? And that was a moment I just started, tears were welling up, and to just think that there is some kind of goodness there in my eyes. And I don't want to be proud or trust in myself at any moment, but or take my salvation for granted or anything like that. But it was just one of the healing moments that to actually look in people's eyes. I probably would often avoid eye contact altogether because I felt I had low self-esteem, and I felt I'm probably one of the worst sinners on the earth. And a lot of the other exercises too, with the beautiful, was it floating candles or something, and just
you're naming your children,
and just realizing that they had a soul, And I didn't say that before. I guess I had subsequent miscarriages, Well, that's a whole another story. First, I felt, coming from Germany, and I got in this women's lib thing, and I felt to get freedom from an oppressive father and an alcoholic husband. It kind of sounded good,
To control your body.
Control my body, or to not have to bow down to anybody or something. But when I actually wanted to conceive, then it wasn't so easy. And also, there was one point, like we had our marriage blessed, and I said to my husband, he allowed all of that, so it was all good. But I said, we had to go to confession before the marriage was blessed. And I said, well, how about let's sin one more time, so before going to confession.
One little, run around the block.
That was probably my last thought I had in that direction, because the next morning I woke up, this was like 7 days before the blessing. I woke up with my period, which was like early, and even my period is often late, so that was really unusual. And I was in such pain. I was like, he'd like knock me down on the floor. I was like sweating from every pore, and I knew like, you're in charge, God, and not me, and I'm sorry.
Oh, the Lord is so patient with us, all of us, because we like to press the limits, huh?
We think we're in charge, and then,
So I had my marriage blessed, and that was a beautiful influx of grace. And trying to not lose my train of thought here, but so at some point we wanted to have children. I even thought, like, in Germany, it's like your astrology sign is very big, so I thought even I could pick my child's like astrology sign, and so we were like, for 8 months we were trying, and nothing would really work. And so again I realized, like, God is in charge of life and death, and not me. It was a real, I guess my pride was getting chiseled down. And so then when I actually conceived, I had one son, and then I had subsequent miscarriages too. So, and
you had many losses to grieve when you went on Rachel's Vineyard.
So I did, and I didn't really look at that too much. But there was one point before Rachel's Vineyard where it was Mother's Day, and we were getting roses, and I got a rose, and I was pregnant at that time. And so I had one son already, but he knocked the rose down. I didn't know about it, and I stepped on the rose. And literally at that point, like, I started hemorrhaging, and I lost the baby, and I could actually see the embryo, and I didn't see like that had any arms or legs that much, but it had an eye. Like it felt like it was looking at me, and I just broke down crying, and I realized, like, it's a person, and I did not have to control, and I was just really upset about that, and I just cried and cried and cried, and even then God came in with, like, I gave it to him, and he came in with consolation. And so that kind of slowly brought it home that, that it was a terrible sin, and we're talking about souls there. And another lady at some point had said, like, because for a long time I justified it, and she said it really quietly. It's like, it's not always that easy. Like, I still don't know what I would have done exactly, but that really brought it home and made me realize that I stopped justifying it. And that's when I surrendered all of that, and when I stopped justifying my sin, that's really when healing could pour in. And Rachel's Vineyard really brought such a healing, like, of my children, and and the culture really doesn't want you to talk about that, the pain you have and the struggles you have, and all those children and their little souls. And I just tell them that I love them, and I didn't want that to happen, and I wish I would have them. I wish that I could see them, I wish I could have all had them. And
they were really real to you then, I think.
They became real, and especially the funeral, like, thing that just really broke me down. But it
memorial
was
service.
also like kind of brought closure, and you know, they just could tell them that I loved them. And yeah, and the other exercise with the Lazarus, I don't know if I'm supposed to tell about
Yes,
all
that's
those
okay.
things, but to know that there was an extra healing that I needed. You know, there's something that happens to your soul, like everything becomes dark, and you really do start to hate yourself somehow, and it affects your children, it affects your marriage, it affects everything.
So there were certain parts of you that were dead to sin, you feel. Right.
Well,
That's what Lazarus was helping you with.
to just give, I don't know, the sentence was like that Jesus is God and he's above. Like he is the ruler over life and death, and that he is more powerful than any sin that I committed. And he can even heal my greatest sins, and to be able to surrender that again, like one more time, you know, because you very often, like you go to confession, like, well, did you confess that before? It's like, you know, you think, oh, I forgot to mention one little thing, or at some point I thought, like, I'm sacrificing my soul for my children, you know, because I already have children. And so that was, I realized now that, well, the devil doesn't own our souls, and it was not mine to give. And for the longest time, I just felt like I was lost already. So, you know, it didn't matter like how much more there was, I was already lost. But it affects really everything. And there is a soul, and it does affect you profoundly. And you know, the culture just wants to sweep it under the rug. You're fine, just go on. And that's not at all the case.
What do you think the challenges are of in the culture where Roe is being challenged, Roe versus Wade? How do you think that's going to impact healing? People either coming forward and needing healing, or going further into distraction and justification, having experienced that?
Well, I can understand like why they might be angry. They're always angry, and it's their body and such things. But and I used to be, I guess, on that side. I used to be angry, and I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. But I would just say to take a step back and look or listen to. Like I don't have the only testimony that it really affects you, and then I would say, and, you know, to allow people to tell their story and to tell the truth, what it really is, and listen to both sides. And they still have their choice. They can still go and have an abortion anytime they want to, even if it's illegal or whatever have you. But I think it just will affect their souls profoundly. And you might not believe that there's a God, but it doesn't really bring any positive thing to your life. And you might think, you know, there's women that say, oh, they wouldn't have my career, or this and that, but it just will always affect you whether you want it or not. And to just take a step back and listen to that before you scream like what you think you want, you know. And I thought, well, you know, I was looking for love and stuff too, and and everybody wants that. And you really, I just realized, like, especially theology of the body, and I know some people think it's a bunch of quote BS, but to really see like the gift that God has for you, like, and being in Encounter School. Took a shout out to the Encounter School. It just said like the devil tries to get you into bed before marriage as hard as he can, and then try to keep you out of your marital bed as much as he can afterwards. So that, I think, is really truth to that. But that tremendous gift that God has for you in that like man-woman relationship, and he wants you to have joy and love and abundance, and those are the best kind of relationships. And you know, if you don't follow God's law, you're going to have like a gift with tire marks on it or something, right? It's going to be broken in a way, and we all want good things, created things, but there's more to that, and God really loves us, and He wants our best. He has our best interest in mind, and that are for children, and I also have 2 frozen grandchildren, so I'm like, there's nothing untouched. And I also have a daughter that she wound up giving up her daughter for adoption because there was all kinds of struggles in the relationship she had. It just keeps repeating, and so she still, I can see she made the better choice, but she's still affected by that, and she's angry about it, and she's blaming me still, and so
it kind of goes to show you the depth and the intensity of a mother's feelings, because to nurture, it's something that comes so naturally, and then to sever that tie, it can be a profound traumatic experience, and no matter what the context. And I'm glad that you discovered the theology of the body and all its beauty and sacredness. I suppose that sex today is not considered even sacred or profound mystery. It's something you were speaking earlier about, thinking we could control it all, and we've gotten to a crazy point these days, but I'm really grateful for your story. And the struggle too. And I find your story rather remarkable in the sense that there were so many moments where like grace was coming through and bringing you closer to God in a yearning and a wanting, even to the marriage blessing. You did so many things to open the door to grace. And I feel like, given everything that you shared, from the abuse to the many betrayals, just a very hard life, that God was close to you on so many levels for the lid to come off the denial, Because without that, I think there's such a terror of facing the truth sometimes when we don't have the assurance of the mercy of God. And that's where, even way back many years ago, He led you to Sister Faustina to speak about God's mercy. So it's a slow building to come home to yourself, home to your heart, home to the truth of what your experience was. And really grateful that you could share this painful story, but a redemptive story. And I think
absolutely. I think even at 5 years old, your little heart knew that God was your father that would never hurt you, and He was your good father, always.
Yeah, at some point, I had a moment, like when I was 11 years old. My parents were fighting all the time, and I really did not want to I never wanted to get married. I never wanted to have a relationship like that. But at some point, I really thought I was going to commit suicide. And I was going to like jump out the window, It's like a 3-third story building. And but in Europe, the windows are like easy to open. It's just like a handle down and it's open. But as I struggled to open that window, it just was shut. It just would not open. And then like the fear of God like came over me, and that's when I knew that God had a purpose for me.
He has a plan. Hang in there. He has a plan.
The guardian angel had his finger on it. He wouldn't let you open that window.
No, and without God and going through those situations, I don't know what the answer. I probably might have committed suicide or something, and there was a point I just wanted to like work myself to death. I reneged that now.
Good. We're glad.
Yeah, take a breather.
So God doesn't want that. He wants, to be with us, and He wants us to have that profound love, like true love, and He does not want us to be used. And a lot of times it's like throwaway relationships, like plastic, like we just throw it away and we buy some new plastic.
He wants us to love and be loved and to be cherished all the days. And you have such a message of hope, and you see clearly the design. And maybe what sometimes feels like, do this, don't do that, like you said, it's for our protection, for our safety. and for the gift of our sexuality to flourish, not be shut down or distorted in any way.
To have like the true pearl and not the plastic price.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Pearl of great price, and you are that, and we're so grateful you're here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the chance to share that. It's like,
Of course. And there's also, you shared more of your story privately, but there's been so many traumas in your life that there is another retreat that Theresa wrote called Grief to Grace. That
it's for healing the wounds of abuse, all kinds of abuse, sexual abuse, physical, emotional, spiritual abuse, and even clergy abuse. We do all that on Grief to Grace, and if anybody's interested, it's grieftograce.org, and it's a week long. Rachel's Vineyard is a weekend, but Grief to Grace is a week long with therapeutic staff and all sorts of beautiful exercises and meditations and rituals to help you grieve your loss and be filled with the presence and the love of God, who was also an abuse survivor.
Isn't that the truth?
and I have to say, I did make up with my father, like before he passed away, was able to reconcile that, like through the grace of God, and that's probably another story.
Peace in your heart. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Monica. That was very inspirational, and I know you're going to help so many who maybe can take a piece of your story and relate to it, and understand that there is hope and healing for everyone. So it's been wonderful today, and I just know that the impact of your story is going to help others to know that Rachel's Vineyard is there for all of us, for all of you. So I'd like to end our time together thanking Dr. Theresa Burke, and for you, Monica, for your powerful witness. And if you would like to register for a Rachel's Vineyard retreat anywhere in the world, go to our main website, rachelsvineyard.org, and thank you. I think that was thank you for your testimony. It was amazing.
Thank you for allowing me the chance.